I'm Jordan Scango, and this is the Volunteer Root Beer Case Study. I named it Volunteer because I went to Tennessee, so big Vols fan. And it had a nice rhyme with the root beer. So this is kind of the case study we did. So here at Volunteer Root Beer, here's how we kind of finished. I'll just start with the bottom line up front of how it went. Next slide. We finished with 2.1 million cases of root beer just sitting on the shelves. As you can see, there was no orders, no shipping, there's nothing moving, as you all saw in the last several cases of the study. So I just was sitting there holding the bag for 2.1 million cases of root beer. Um, that's what happens when demand stagnates. And here's kind of the inventory shipment and the process of how I went about it. So you can see on the left chart the shipments received and orders shipped. So it started off pretty slow. It was around 50 for the first several weeks, week 10, 11. Then it starts increasing. And I had the mindset, I was like, I'm going to be very conservative just to make sure I'm not just holding the bag in case something like this happens. And then it increased slowly, and then it had these major jumps, and I was like, well, now I want to get ahead of it. I want to make sure, you can see my inventory in the right chart dropped down to zero. So I was running out of supply. I was not making all my sales. I was like, all right, something needs to change. I need to get a little more aggressive, because that's what the trend was showing me, and it was increasing. Peaked at around 1.3 million sales in weeks 17. So I was thinking, great. I at that point I was feeling good. I really wanted to order a lot, but then it went down a little bit, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to order 0 cases just to make sure that I don't get caught holding the bag. And then it seemed like it was good, and then it went back up a little bit, and I was like, all right, I'm not falling for this twice. So then I ordered a little more, a little extra, got ahead of my skis, and then it just dropped and it tanked. And you can see at the end, you can see my inventory, as we saw in the last slide, is 2.1 million. You can see that highlighted right here, just for the last 7 weeks, just sitting on it, costing me over $1 million a week. So here also highlights just the shipments and backlog. The backlog meaning I was not producing what they were looking to buy, and this is where I should have learned my lesson, but I got too aggressive. A little backlog's good. You obviously don't want too much. You don't want to be way under and just storing a ton. So I thought a little backlog was good to me. Week 13 was like the sweet spot, but no, it got bigger and bigger, and I just went too aggressive. And you can see my orders and how it went about. And then on the right side, you can see total need and orders shipped, where I was just, meeting it all for the most part, except for those weeks 13 to 17. I was a little bit under, and that, looking back, was a good thing. I should have stuck with it. And here's the last chart of it, just showing the inventory and backlog to where the cost came from. So first 12 weeks, not much cost, not much expense, and just holding too many. Was like 50 cents a case to hold, or $1 a case lost out on, or 50 cents a case to hold an inventory, and I just blew it up from week 17 on. It's like, yeah, you don't want your cost being that high for backlog. You want to meet the demand. In an ideal world, this would be a perfect balance of zero, but that's never going to work in supply chain. And you can see here, just over $1 million of that from week 26 on, and it's like really averaging $800,000 from week 18 on, just caught holding a bag. So some of the challenges that I faced, we all faced. I assume we all had the same scenario, the same playthrough, but demand forecasting, I started to be conservative with that, so I didn't just overdo it in forecasting the demand. I wanted to make sure that it was slow and steady, and I was pretty close. And it started 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 51,000. I was like, all right, I'm pretty much on this. The first couple of weeks, I actually did a couple of 0 shipment weeks to really reduce what I was holding on, because I was like, I'm only selling 50,000. Why do I want to hold on to 200,000 cases? So that was a challenge for me, as I forecasted demand, and then all of a sudden it tripled in 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, just order 1 million. And that's where I became over aggressive in doing that. I thought I saw in the tea leaves that this was going to continue forever. I don't know if I thought it was just exponential and I was going to be ordering 1 million cases or what, but I was prepared for that, and that's what I did. Something that could have played into this could have been a seasonal sale. It could have been maybe we're in a beach town or something, and it slowly builds up in early spring, and then the weather's getting better, and it's slowly, and then more people, and then it's like you get spring break, and it's like, oh yeah, and then it's like summer's here, and everyone's at the beach, and selling tons of root beer floats, and then all of a sudden, time to go back to school, the weather starts sucking, and everyone's gone for the summer. Now you're just holding it. So that was a challenge we face. I'm telling myself I was in a beach town, and that's why. Maybe it's because my product sucked in the end and no one wanted, or a new thing came out, or maybe it was unhealthy. Well, it's root beer, so maybe it was too unhealthy. Another challenge was just lost profit by way of, eating into your profit for not making sales sucks, but it sucks even more to eat into your profit, your money, by not even selling anything. So it's like the double whammy. It's like not only are you making no money for those last 7 weeks by not selling any root beer, but another challenge was I'm just sitting here holding on. I'm refrigerating it. I'm just keeping it in warehouses. I'm paying for the overhead, the floor space to just do nothing with. It's like it would have been better to just dump out and just cut your losses, or offer just a tenth of the price, or just donated it. So some actions that could be taken in the supply chain to just help mitigate these efforts. And this was the biggest takeaway I took from the class, honestly, is point of sales and just its impact on businesses, and just as we become more analytical and data driven. But we looked at the 7-Eleven supply chain thing, and the gas station. We talked about point of sales, and just all these things where point of sales and tracking that's huge. If you can actually track like real time how many are being bought, how many are needed at various venues, then you can help forecast what you need to do just much more accurately and on the dot, and knowing that exact moment. You're not collecting data once a week. You're knowing right away. Smaller lead times. Maybe you locate yourself closer to the warehouse so it doesn't take as long to ship, or the other places to the factory, or whatever it is, to get the product in to make. Just helps. Cut out a little time to be more reactive to, so you don't have to maybe forecast as far down the road, because it doesn't take you a week to get a new batch. It only takes you 3 days. So it's like maybe you're forecasting 3 days, and then turn just to the small batch size of, like, if you are only forecasting 3 days, only needing a 3-day window, then it's like you can make more small batches. You don't need to order 1 million, units a week. You only need 130,000 a day if you break it up that way. It's like, yeah, you're still getting to the 1 million a week, but you're doing it in a much more efficient way of 1.3 million, because maybe you have a spike one day, but maybe that would clue you in on the drop in forecast, smaller increments. And then postponement was another thing, and the final one I'll talk to is kind of an action that can be taken. It's just like postponing the setup of the product. Maybe where you're selling these root beer bottles, yeah, the classic feel is great, but maybe if it's to a restaurant, maybe they could get a soda stream fountain thing, and it's you're only selling the syrup and the items, but it costs, as you see in these Coke Freestyle machines, one of those, it's like if you had every bottle that machine could make, your footprint would be massive. But instead, it's got all the syrups in there that it can pump out, that it's like, if you use the postponement strategy, it's like, yeah, that one machine can produce 1 million bottles of root beer, where the floor space of that would be 100 times as big, So it's just kind of like postponing how it's stored and where it's stored. Maybe you postpone putting it in the refrigerator. Maybe it's like beer, where it's like if it's cold and hot, and that can cause it to skunk. Maybe this root beer special to where it's like you just leave it right from the factory. You don't make it cold until you're at the store to sell it. Maybe that helps reduce some of the inventory holding costs, because now you're not spending all that money on refrigeration. They're doing that at the final point of sales place at the restaurant. They put it in their fridge there. At the gas station, it's in one of their coolers or something. So those are just the things I took away from this survey or this case study, and really just not to get ahead of your skis in demand forecasting. Yeah, it's good when the going's good, but as soon as something takes a turn, especially as we saw it was a permanent turn for 6 weeks, it's like it didn't restore at all, and now you're just bag holding, as I was, 2.1 million units of root beer.